order, and the first item would be adoption of the agenda. Please.
Second.
That adoption, all those in favor? Motion's carried. We have two delegations this evening, and I'll allow Councillor Grant to declare his conflict.
Your Honor, I would like to declare a conflict on the following two items and leave.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I would like to call Don Grant then forward to the podium to give his presentation on 1865 Queens Avenue development permit and variance permit applications. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak in support of this application. We purchased the property on the end of Queens from Alice Bullen with the intent to make the best use of the property. We went through a design process in consultation with the planners that work for the city. We talked with the park superintendent and the building inspector and worked with our surveyor, an arborist, an engineer, the house designer, and the landscape architect. And what we did was we came up with a plan that will rejuvenate an older craftsman home, one of the oldest homes in Comox. We also will be preserving 3 significant trees, and I'd like to make a comment that the preservation of a significant tree under the guidance of an arborist involves about 200 square meters of property to protect that tree. So the land use is severely impacted by the preservation of significant trees. Our design maximizes the zoning density, so we were able to work within the existing zoning of the property. And we will be increasing the tax base of the city without any increase on the demand for services, which is one of the goals of the OCP, the densification of our fair town. The project will accrue some $32,000 to the DCC fund for the city. And the design that we've come up with emphasizes the privacy of the new structures and the neighbors. And we worked as hard as we could to have as little impact on the neighborhood as possible, while allowing us to proceed with the development that achieves the goals that I mentioned above. In summation, I'd just like to say that we're proud to present this attractive and reasonable development, and that we've designed it in accord with the OCP, and we're not asking for any change in the zoning density. We look forward to the construction of this innovative project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Any questions from members of council for Mr. Grant? Councillor Swift.
I read through the proposal and it looks interesting to me, Don. Do you have plans then? You're going to retain that original house?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the motivating.
But I hear in your presentation you're going to be doing some rejuvenating of that house as well? Or not?
Yeah, we're going to make it habitable. Alice had, I don't think she used the upstairs at all the last probably 10 years while she was in the house. But the house is solid and sound, and we intend to make the house habitable and market it.
So most of the changes would be on the inside?
Absolutely, yeah. There's no changes proposed to the outside of the house at all.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Next delegation includes Fred and Barbara Newhouse and others, I understand? Okay, well, if you could come forward and introduce yourself.
I'm Fred Newhouse. I have, what's my lot number? I'm not sure. I'm right below sudden change the nature of my lot. The delegation I have, there are, I believe, 3 people would like to speak after me, so I'll keep this fairly brief and hit kind of the points I have. This is one way to get the neighborhoods talking together. I think this is a great idea. I've met a lot of people just with this, going through this process. But the other thing is the lack of clarity and understanding of the OCP. Like the infill, ground infill, it was like the lights went on in my head. Oh yeah, well, I should know that. I don't know that. And I found out a lot of my neighbors don't know that. And this is probably throughout Comox. People just don't know. So just one suggestion is maybe you guys should have a town hall session and explain exactly what infill, ground infill is. Because it took me a couple days to finally figure out what everyone was talking about. And, so the lights were on. And of course, Queens is a fairly narrow road. A lot of people are up in Queens for a reason, because we like it as a back end, sort of a backwater area. So the nature of that street is unique. So that will be spoken to by others here. The other thing I want to speak to is, because I'm down slope, I want to speak to the soil water regime. And I know the engineering is looking at it, and there'll be perk tests, et cetera, et cetera. But I also know that I'm a forester by profession, so I know that soil moisture regime is critical whenever you're trying to grow anything, be it trees or vegetation or landscape. And I actually have 4 very large stems of spur just down the slope of that lot. So my concern there is that a change in regime is going to be a change in the growth pattern of my trees. And a change in the growth pattern with drought, with climate warming, with huge deficits in moisture is going to mean my trees are going to suffer, and I'll have to probably take them down. So it's going to be quite a cost to me. So I want that to be taken into account. Now, stormwater, there are things that can be done. I've noticed in the OCP that stormwater management practices that reduce the burden and enhance the ecological amenity values are important to the town of Comox. And that it's stormwater runoff must be retained within its originating watershed wherever feasible. I know that feasible is a lot of cost there. I think, but I'm not sure, that the watershed actually cuts right through that property. So that you've got, some goes into Gulf Creek watershed and the other goes to Buena Vista. So you have a split between the 2 watersheds. Whether it's feasible to take that into account, I'm not sure, but just to bring that to your attention. And the other thing is on-site stormwater retention facilities, including rain gardens and rock pits. I would encourage that, because if you take the peak flows and put them into storm drains, by putting 35% roof area over that area, you're going to have a huge amount of stormwater leaving the site. And so the net soil moisture regime is going to be considerably reduced. So if you can somehow retain it by using rain gardens, rock pits, best management practices, then that water is going to be available for the drought, for the dry season in the summer, rather than having it all wicked out and gone. So for me, it's important that the soil moisture regime doesn't get altered too drastically. And there's no big change there. And that's my main talking point, the soil moisture regime. And others are going to talk about other things. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Peter's going to talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, your name, sir?
Peter Wilson. I live at 1864, directly opposite from the house in question.
Right.
I sent an email through this afternoon. I hope everybody got
Yes, we did.
get a copy. We have very sent out. It never arrived in people's mailboxes until the Tuesday. By Wednesday, 11 o'clock, we had to have names in for a delegation. I think this is, to be honest, totally inadequate for us to even talk as a community about what our concerns might be. And I ask that any voting on this be deferred for another period to allow us as a community to get together and talk about it. We've been running up and down the streets this past 2 days trying to find each other and see what our concerns were, whether they've shared or not. And to be honest, I mean, it was a long weekend. There were a lot of people out of town over this period, and it is a concern that we haven't been given an opportunity to adequately represent ourselves here. One other item I'd just like to raise is that when we first moved to Comox, we were everyone was talking about Queens Avenue as being this pristine part of paradise. You know, it's this uniqueness, this quirkiness road in Comox, near the downtown, and when we finally found it, and subsequently bought a property there, you know, it was just as if we had found the place of our dreams. A nice narrow little road with unique properties, and now with the potential of having significantly heavier development, certainly directly opposite us, having a fourfold increase in vehicles, potentially, just coming to the end of the street and getting into the property. I'm very concerned about that. The property, the whole community is based on pedestrians moving through from the houses just opposite. And there is insufficient capacity, I believe, for that road to have an increased density that is being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bernard Usher, and my wife Marilyn over there, and we live on Queens. And
Sorry, what's your address, sir?
1848 Queens.
Thank you.
And that's the third house on Queens that we've lived on. We obviously really like the neighborhood. And we, like Peter, realized that it's a gem in the middle of the suburbs. We're concerned about the development there because I think it's kind of the leading edge of the wedge in changing our whole neighborhood and the lifestyle and the ambience and the safety. We have a person with disabilities living with us, and she walks safely downtown. I love that four-way stop. It makes sure everybody stops. And the street doesn't have much traffic, didn't have much traffic. And so I am concerned about the increase in just in the people that are on the street. Not everybody slows down. Even right now, we've had lots of new people in the neighborhood, and people are starting to really drive fast down there. It's a narrow road. There's no curbs, there's no sidewalks. We picked it because of our age. Pretty soon we're going to have to be walking everywhere, and that's a nice, safe street to walk on. I don't know if you have any considerations in the council to upgrade the street. We haven't heard about that. What about, like you talked about infilling, like it's sort of the answer to everything. Have you made any inquiries into increased policing that you're going to need? Like at one time in Comox, we had a real problem with teenagers, and we've seen one business actually shut down because of the teenage hangers-on. We don't want that to happen. So have you considered extra policing on this infill path that you're on? If you see, we looked at the map there, and we don't see very many infill probabilities by the color code. So, and ours is the major one, pretty much. So So how is that going to benefit us in that little neighborhood? How's this infill going to benefit us? We were there first. The developers that are going to develop this are not living there. The person that they bought the house off of, Alice, you know, she was an environmentalist in and out. I'm not sure how she would appreciate the fact of her place being over, you know, with this new density. We talk about the OCP. Well, we bought there and we lived there under the old OCP. The new plan has just been changed last year. It's almost half the size of the lot requirements, which speaks to more people on a street that's got enough people on it right now. All the lots are developed. So we're concerned from that, from a lifestyle angle. I don't know. I'm sure the lot qualifies for all of the measurements and everything that are in place. Oh, we have another speaker. So I just want to endorse everything that Peter and Julia put on their letter here. Queens Avenue is what drew us to Comox. And we'd like to maintain the peace, and I believe that the council here is part of government, which is supposed to maintain our peace first and above all. So I guess that's what I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Council, the time allotted for the delegation is expired, but I take it you'd have no objection to hearing the final speaker, perhaps? Is there just one
speaker about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure council's fine with that.
I'm Barbara Berger, and I live at 1847 Queens. I think it's really important that we didn't get a chance to talk as neighbors. The biggest issue for me is the change in variance, and I'm worried that the one lot is going to be full of buildings as much as you can possibly cram on a lot, and I'm not sure it's the wisest use of space. So I question the development as a whole. I question the idea of leaving that older home there, and plus putting two other homes that have a fairly large footprint. We have a 0.3 of an acre, which is half of that, and our footprint is less than what is planned. And I don't think that's responsible planning. So that's all I want to say about that, and I think that it's important to maintain that vegetation. I really agree with Fred. Fred, about water and vegetation. I love my yard because I garden, but I understand density, and I understand the importance of it, but I think it should be done more responsibly than it's being done, from what I understand.
Thank you, ma'am. Do council have any questions from the people that presented as part of that delegation? Yes, Barbara.
I just had one quick question for clarification, and I forgot to ask Mr. Grant, but I am assuming that the developers didn't talk to the neighbours about the plan, so it was the letter from us that gave the
Not all the neighbors received the letter.
Several didn't receive the letter.
Sorry, is your question for Mr. Grant or for?
Yes, or either or. I mean,
I spoke with all the contiguous property owners.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
And our planner, can you just comment on the timing issue around the notices? The notices mailed out and so on. It looks like it takes about a week to get mail in town.
That's quite unusual. So usually the turnaround is 2 to 3 days. The statute requirement is for notices to be mailed out minimum of 10 days before council considers the matter. In this case, they were mailed out more than 10 days prior to. I can't comment on the mail delivery or anything else. the good thing is people actually were able to come and
Yeah.
give the cost. That's all.
Councillor Fletcher, your hand up, I think.
To Mr. Wilson, I briefly saw your letter in our reading file before I came in. You've indicated that a lot of particular garbage trucks are doing a turnaround at the end of Queens and that they're having to utilize your driveway in order to make that turnaround?
That's right.
And there's been some damage to your driveway?
Yeah, there's no formal, bulb to the end of the cul-de-sac. And the garbage trucks cannot make that turn without coming from my driveway or the driveway at 1864. So I've already got, it's a concrete pad which is already fairly badly cracked in one location where the front of the garbage trucks already come. So that is it's a somewhat separate issue, but however, trucks are going to get heavier and lighter. So.
They actually back out of Queens Avenue all the way back out to Church Street on Church. So because they can't turn.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll move on with the rest of the agenda. The matter of this application will come up under new business, which is in a little bit, so by all means, there'll be a presentation from our planner, I believe, on the application as well. So we'll move on to minutes of meetings for. Oh yeah, we gotta wait for we're used to being. All right, so for minutes of meetings, we have the October 3rd council meeting minutes for approval.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion's carried. Committee of the whole of October 10th, those minutes are for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Receipt then, all those in favor? Motion's carried. There were a couple recommendations. Actually, the first one is one that staff have drafted based on the presentation that was made to us by Charlene Day, the Early Childhood Education of BC. So this actually hasn't been passed as a committee recommendation, but it is one that came out of the material that was provided. So staff recommendation. Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion on that recommendation? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. And then the recommendation around the reserve funds bylaw for first, second, and third reading to be forwarded here.
Move that.
Second.
All those in favor? Motion is carried. We'll deal with that shortly. No committee reports. We have a management report at page 35 for receipt.
Move receipt.
Second.
Those in favor? Motion is carried. Lucille will be having a report next week on the dog leash, hot dog leash, so that'll be dealt with beginning next week. The other matters, I think, are self-explanatory. Yes?
I just wanted to the chair of staff if there's anything you can tell us about the composting pilot project.
Something going in the newsletter, I know, coming up.
There is something going in the newsletter. Yeah, we're still finalizing details with the regional district taking care of, but it's all looking positive.
Newsletter draft I saw said hopefully by February something will be initiated.
And homeowners will be given the receptacles, I understand. Is that?
That's the plan.
That's the plan.
I saw lots of Facebook activity yesterday on changing the pickup to going to 2 days for recycling and 1 day for garbage if we were actually to make this change. That
So
seemed
maybe
to be
2 weeks for garbage and one.
yeah,
Every 2 weeks.
yeah. So just
Yeah, I
it
noticed
seems to be out there, and that seems to be
It's certainly been the case in other communities that have rolled out, say, composting project. So that's something staff will have to advise on. Garbage every 2 weeks and recycling and composting
every week.
annually. But we haven't made any decisions on that yet.
Do we have a contract that we have to have?
We do.
Yeah.
That contract comes up for renewal usually at the end of every year, so or at least can be reviewed. And it's something, again, this is a pilot project, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, but it's good because you'll be able to really see how little garbage you really do put out. When you do that.
Yeah, that's certainly the hope. Okay, so nothing else on the management report. We'll move on to 375 Butchers Road. Staff have brought this forward, the report at page 37 containing a number of recommendations, and maybe if our planner could just comment on the intentions here. thing to do with the secondary suite?
Yes, this is an application that was last before council at the beginning of the year. Has been waiting resolution of outstanding items, primarily covenants being registered on title. Since that time, we have instituted the allowances for secondary suites. The zoning along Butchers Road, and as proposed along Butchers Road on this property, has been amended to allow secondary suites. So that change has occurred at the time council was considering this application. That zone, the R1.3, did not allow for secondary suites. The property that's along Butchers Road, the proposed lot, is a double wide lot. It had an illegal suite. To keep it in conformance with the neighborhood, there was an allowance made or proposed to allow a secondary suite, but to register a covenant on title that if the property ever subdivided, the new units would not have secondary suites. The idea is double wide lot, you'd be allowed 2 units, so fine, they could have a secondary suite, but if you ever subdivided, there'd be no suites. That covenant has been registered. For us not to register that covenant would require a second public hearing, which the applicant has indicated he's not in favor of doing. He'd prefer to leave the covenant on title and deal with it at a future time. And if so, at a future time, he could apply to remove the covenant and we would hold the public hearing. So that's just a little.
Councilor Guy?
So is the long and short of this that really what we've done is left it exactly the way it is?
Exactly as proposed, yes.
Those housekeeping amendment to the wording of the bylaw.
Yes.
Okay, anything further on that from the planner? And then to go forward on this, we need to repeal bylaw, third reading, sorry, of bylaw 1698.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. And that the bylaw be amended as shown in attachment 4.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. And that the bylaw is amended be given third reading.
Move.
Second.
Those in favor? Motion is carried. And finally, that the bylaw is amended be adopted.
Move.
Second.
All in favor? Motion is carried. Well, thank you, Mr. Kleiner. No special reports under bylaws. We do have the reserve funds bylaw before us for first, second, and third reading.
Move that.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. I'll come forward for adoption, not in 2 weeks, but 3 weeks. Okay, under new business, then we have our planner's presentation on 1865 Queens Avenue, and he's brought that up on the screen, and I'll call him forward to give his presentation from the planning staff.
Once again, Your Honor, I'd like to declare conflict.
Yep. All right, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. So the subject property's address is 1865 Queens Avenue. There's a DP and DEP application. This presentation is broken down into 4 parts. First being an application summary, then a review of the OCP sustainability implications, neighborhood compatibility implications, and the DEP itself. So the proposal, subject property, is shown here. And kind of bled out, but you can see Queens coming in, makes a hook, and it dead ends right at the property. And this is a patio home development in this area, and there's a covenant open space immediately to the west of the subject property. So the proposal is a development permit to facilitate a 3-lot Bearland strata subdivision for single-family development. The development variance permit is to reduce the minimum parcel frontage from 20 to 7 meters and the minimum front setback from 7.5 to 3 meters. The OCP designation is residential ground-oriented infill. In this case, that OCP designation is an allowance for ground-oriented infill, single-family, small lot single-family going down the general floor of 350 square meters. duplex, triplex. In this case, that designation is not being utilized. The current property is zoned R1.1, historical zoning, has a minimum parcel size of 650 square meters. No change in terms of rezoning or reduction in that parcel size is being proposed. Under Bearland Strata, you can do parcel averaging. As long as the average still comes out at 650, and so that's what's being proposed. So it's not ground orientated. There is no rezoning or increased density other than what's under the existing zoning proposed. Development permit area is DPA number 2, residential ground orientated infill.
So just stop there for a second. Council's purview on this is that land use you've indicated is in accord with zoning. Are we concentrating then on form and character principally with the development permit? Is that?
Yes. Sustainability implications. So this is infill as opposed to greenfield development. So I'm not getting any additional road obligations. So retention of the existing single-family dwelling is being proposed. 2 new single-family dwellings proposed to be built green bronze or equivalent. And there's also tree retention replacement being proposed. That on this site, given the number of trees, gets a little complicated. So I've broken it down into 3 areas. Sort of the parameters in terms of what we were looking at, the methodology that was used to assess it, and the result. So powers to get into retention of existing trees is under development permit area. There is no, our tree retention bylaw is not applied to this property. So DPA number 2, existing mature trees should be retained wherever possible. Owner should employ the principle of no net loss of significant plant material in any development. Where it is necessary to remove significant plant material in order to develop property, replacement planting should be provided a sufficient number, size, type, maturity to offset its removal. Under the Local Government Act, so provincial statute, this form of a DP is specifically precluded from reducing density. So under the existing zoning, there's an allowance for 3 lots. Bearland Strata lots, council prohibited from using this guideline to reduce the lot yield below 3 lots. Methodology. The first thing that was required was an arborist report to identify significant trees and their health and hazard status. In accordance with past practice, no retention or replacement requirement proposed for trees in poor health or a hazard. Second was taking a look in terms of retaining trees at what could be done to modify the buildable areas in the driveways. So it shows 2 different drawings. This is as shown in the arborist report, and that was the initial proposal that was presented. You'll note that the driveway is a lot closer to the pine tree that was identified as a significant tree, and also I believe this is a plum beside the existing house, a mature tree. So what was modified in that was the driveway access was moved so that we have a much larger area for the protection of the pine tree. In addition, this driveway was bent, and then also it's proposed and as a DP condition to be in a gravel form to protect the root area of that. Driveway comes down, lot A is increased to provide that area of protection for this tree in here. Part of the variance in terms of reducing allows us to move the buildings closer to the north. That gives us further room and this cutout for the protection of this mature Douglas fir tree in this area. So those were the items that were done in terms of retaining the trees. And that got us, as I mentioned, tree 3 and 7 if you're following in the arborist report on the white pine and Douglas fir. The arborist report also includes recommending the retention of trees 9 and 10. In there it says that on tree number 9 and 10, a north root zone protection area of an additional 4.5 meters beyond the stem of the tree. These are approximately 16 feet off rear property line. In comparison to what's being proposed, that root zone, while the foundation is not, the tree stem is not within the foundation. That root zone protection of 4.5 meters as recommended by the arborist is. And additionally, of course, they do any foundations that need excavating beyond that. Now, this building footprint could, of course, be moved, could be shrunk. Moving it north would be difficult because we've already trying to stay away from the root zone of this pine tree in this area. And right now, in terms of neighborhood compatibility, they are proposing one-story buildings. So that might trigger a revision to a two-story building. In this regard, since it was possible but questionable, the report is based on replacement trees for these two fir trees, 9 and 10, maintaining it as Douglas firs for habitat, and on a 3-to-1 ratio, so additional 6 trees. Given the number of trees that are to be removed, of course, retention is going to be, long-term retention is going to be a key issue. Outstanding conditions include a retention covenant to maintain not only the 3 trees to be retained, but also the 6 replacement trees. And to further encourage retention, that covenant would have a rent charge. So it's an annual charge set out in the covenant, and as long as the trees are maintained, or if they die replaced, that rent charge is stayed. But the second that they die and they're not replaced, or they are removed, the rent charge becomes payable. So we also have a financial, not only a legal mechanism to retain the tree through enforcement of the covenant, but also a financial mechanism to ensure its management.
Can I just ask a question, Mark?
Yeah.
How long is that covenant effective for?
Until such time as council approves it. Which, I mean, and that is a key change. Right now, there is no tree protection bylaw or anything else on that property. So the existing, if you want, there is nothing prohibiting right now the clear cutting of the lawn. So there would be additional restrictions placed on the property through this development. Neighborhood compatibility. Again, we're dealing with single-family dwellings. You do have in your package actual elevations and site plans. As past practice on this, the approach taken by staff is to identify the key issues on neighborhood compatibility, propose development permit conditions to address those issues, and not tie the development to specific designs. And this is really reflective of the sort of single-family market. There's a general expectation in the community that if you're buying a single-family dwelling and you wish to have modifications done to it on set that aren't shown on the set plan, that you have the ability within reason to do that without going through a development amendment process and application fee. In regards to the key issues that were identified was maintaining privacy surrounding properties, compatibility with existing residential area. The development permit conditions, retention of the existing single-family dwelling is something that would be tied into the development permit. So if that was to be removed and a new building proposed, it would come forward again to council for a development permit on that proposed strata lot. New single-family dwellings will be limited to 1 story, 6.5 meters maximum height, opposed to the current zoning 9 meters, 2-story max. Oh, there's no story maximum under current R1.1. It's just a 9 meter. Is it 2-story? No windows on the east elevation of proposed lot C, and hopefully this works backwards and forwards. So proposed lot C, this is the one that's coming in. This is the east elevation of it. Something similar was not proposed for strata lot B, as we have the natural covered area tree retention in this area of patio homes. Thank you. Privacy hedging along the south and east lot lines. Again, that was seen as being the areas of impact as opposed to the natural area along the west. Stipulation accents and fiberglass shingles. 2 new on all lots in the front yard and open space, so no building enclosed, no building constructed, equal to 5.5 by 7.5 meter area. What that's really to get at is, even if you have a double car garage, a lot of people will often not park in that, or use it for other uses. So this ensures that there is an open space area, if that is the way that you choose to use your property, sufficient to handle 2 cars, and each with individual access onto the common driveway. Exterior lighting restrictions, and we've also expanded that to include patios and driveways in terms of full cutoff lighting, not shining on adjacent properties. Development variance permit. So that's really for Lot B, 7-meter frontage. We're reducing the frontage, as you'll note on the previous proposal, they actually proposed showing bringing the driveway all the way across, that would have got the 20-meter frontage. On lots B and C, reducing the front setback, which is an interior setback, to 3 meters. Its primary impact is going to be on the interior of the project as opposed to anything for the exterior. So it increased the flexibility, low impact on neighborhood compatibility, and it retained the facilitated retention of the existing single-family dwelling in tree number 7. And with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions for a planner, Councillor Grant?
Yeah, could you you brought up a good point with form and character, and just for those who weren't here the last time this came up and the public, could you just explain what form and character, what we can actually do on this regarding form and character, or maybe that's a question for the mayor?
I think what he said is, with interpretation of the guidelines, you cannot lower the density that's allowed, which is 650 square meter lots on an averaging basis. So we're looking at form and character, which is all the issues that have been outlined here.
Right. So we're left with not whether or not this is going to go, but what it's going to look like is really our issue here.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even there, you are limited to the guidelines.
Yes.
So you're able to impose those guidelines, not create them.
Okay, Councillor Fletcher, then Price.
Thank you. Margaret, can you speak to the hydrology of the land, pre-post, what you've done to ensure that there's no, I assume, no net change in water on the lot?
Certainly. So we do have a development permit guideline that states on-site mitigation measures should be provided so that post-development hydrology, runoff, and infiltration reflects pre-development hydrology. Taken to its ultimate, that involves a geotechnical and engineering analysis and soil depth analysis. It's not something that we have in the past implemented on subdivisions, larger subdivisions, let alone infill. What we have done in this case, the applicant's proposing the low maintenance, low watering demand planting. We have the arborist report in terms of the health of the trees, to maintain the health of the trees. We have crushed rock, of course, on the walkways for A, B, and C, and the gravel driveway. At time of subdivision, under the subdivision regulations, the applicant is required to hire a geotechnical engineer, assess the suitability of the soils for exfiltration of roof drains. So at that time, there will be a report done. They'll analyze the depth of the soils and whether or not roof drains can be connected into it. There is also an allowance that at time of subdivision, at time of building permit, people do have the option of not necessarily connecting to the storm. They can connect to on-site rock drains. Some of our areas, for example, Bona Vista, the south side of the road, a lot of those single-family homes are all connected that way because the storm drain on Bona Vista is higher than the lots. They slope off to the south.
Okay. Councillor Price.
Yes, thank you. And the hydrology was one of my questions. certain mentions in the arborist report that the signs that it's wet in that bottom area from the way the roots and the grasses are. So we would be able to assure the neighbourhood that we would not be making that situation worse and destabilising the existing trees on this property and the adjoining properties?
No. In terms of staying out of the root zone, we are able to identify that. In terms of the trees and the moisture given to the trees, other than the limitations that I stated, which also include actually parcel coverage, but other than those limitations and the allowance for consideration of rock pits, the ultimate impact on what it would do in terms of water entering that property and water leaving that property, we haven't analyzed, and we're not proposing any conditions in terms of finished grade. So, I mean, in terms of finished grade, our standard approach on developments within any development within the town, commercial, multifamily, single family, we do control height, and we measure that from existing grade. Beyond that, any changes to the groundwater regime that are done have to be in accordance with common law requirements in terms of not damaging the neighbor's property. And we leave that as a private property.
But we have expectations in the course of this development that we will not be creating problems, because to ask people to go to common law to resolve problems that come out of a development that's not been properly handled seems a difficult process.
Our abilities, in terms of grade, if you just get the issue of grade and grade changes. So if you have a low area in your backyard and it drains onto your neighbor's yard and you're taking water from the neighbor above, our ability to get into that and regulate that, our legislative ability is very limited. Certain municipalities have done that, like Surrey. They do have full-time staff to deal with neighbor disputes. I mean, most people, you want to create a garden in your backyard, you're not really thinking about coming to the town for a permit. So it's very hard for us to control. In this case, the analysis that we've done in terms of arborist reports is beyond what is typically the case in single-family development. But so the only way that you could save in terms of the actual hydrology and where it was leaving would be to analyze where the existing water is coming from and the exact implications of the building itself or buildings.
And do we have the ability to require such things as rain gardens? Is that something that we could require?
Under that development permit guideline, so you can start to look at those things. But again, I mean, unless you know the exact hydrology to do a rain garden, you also run risks in terms of increasing water downstream. So you don't want to decrease, you don't want to increase. Where we've gotten into that right now, is, for example, is Northeast Comox, very large stormwater management plan to look at that. And that's in regards to capacity issues on Queens Ditch. So we have not gotten into that in the past.
And just to clarify again, given the current zoning on this property, if we weren't to go with a bare land strata and these changes, the owners of the property could subdivide this into 3 lots, could they?
Without any variances, they could subdivide it into 3 lots, yes.
Okay, and do whatever, remove the trees, whatever.
Remove the trees, could alter the soil right now. You can remove the trees right now, you can alter the soil right now, you can increase, you can decrease. It is a highly altered environment. It is an urban neighborhood environment. So, and they could continue to do so.
And I just wonder, obviously it's a neighbourhood and it's wonderful to hear, strong neighbourhoods and it's certainly a beautiful neighbourhood. Is there any opportunities, if this does go ahead today, are there any opportunities for the neighbourhood to have some say or to have some ability to make comments on what works with such closeness together? Is there
terms of providing comment to council in how they are applied.
Because it's such things as, do we know that people prefer to have one story? I mean, we're assuming that they would, and it seems reasonable to assume that. But do we know that people wouldn't prefer 2 stories to protect more trees? It's that sort of discussion.
That is something that council could direct staff to advertise. What we'd encourage council is to consider the best approach for both the neighborhood and goals of council is to work with a developer in terms of obtaining a known product. So, for example, as mentioned, there is nothing stopping the developer from complying with all the variants with the existing zoning and then putting in 2-story homes. It's got its existing zoning on that. Right? Also, like on things in the groundwater regime, once you start getting into it, people will have wet areas in the backyards, and they will drain. They'll put drain tile in, and they'll drain them into our storm system, which we have historically allowed. One person may definitely value a wet backyard, and another person may not. And if council, I don't believe it would be very practical or feasible for council to arbitrate that on a political level. But it would take up quite a bit of staff time, and I don't really know if you'd make anybody happy. But of course, you could direct staff.
Okay, Councillor Grant.
Yeah, Marvin, on one of the ladies that spoke, I'm sorry, I forgot what their name was about talking about the variances and the size of the variance. The main variance that you've got on there, which is the 20 meters to 7 inches, in order to accommodate the driveway, which is what's allowing them to maintain or retain the old house. Is that correct?
Pertaining to by not having the driveway go across here. If the driveway goes across here, then you have a 20-meter frontage. It's you can see the proposed lots 21 and 21. Sorry, 20.1 and 20.1. So by not having the driveway going here, you have more area. The previous proposal showed the driveway swinging up closer to here. Okay. And also, as you can tell, the footprint of this house and the cutout in here has been shifted to the north. And that's for the root protection area of this large fir tree.
Okay, any further questions, Councillor Fletcher?
And just, can you comment on the fact that more for garbage trucks or fire trucks or whatever, how we deal with Queens Avenue, turnaround radius for a fire truck, something like that, a fire truck getting into there? What are we?
Queens is not built to a 9-meter standard. It's built to a lower standard. Call correctly, there is no sidewalk on Queens. So our fire trucks would have, I have not heard of, the matter was referred to the fire department. We were not made aware of any concern in terms of getting access to fight fires. They would simply back up to put a cul-de-sac in there. You're looking at, off the top of my head, I think our cul-de-sac pavement radius is 14 meters, our standard. Our road dedication width on a standard road is 9 meters, and this is below that, probably in the area of around 7 meters or so. So it would be a significant change to the neighborhood.
Okay, any further by way of questions? Yes.
I just one quick question. What would be the consequences of waiting 2 weeks to give the community time to look at it and get their questions answered? You know, I suspect that, and it sounds like a lot of work has gone into this and a lot of thought has gone into how this can happen and protect the land to the highest degree. But I know communities always feel better when they have some involvement and say in what's happening. So if we were to defer this for 2 weeks, can you see any hardships coming out of that?
I don't know. I mean, that would depend on priorities and communications of the property owners and the applicant. is if we have met the statutory requirements and council is able to defer or table to seek more public input. There's no legal impediment to do so.
Okay. Councilor Grant.
No, I was just going to move the recommendation in light of the fact that I think that they've done a lot of work. They tried to make this fit.
Speak to it until...
Okay, yeah, I'll move the recommendation and then someone...
Okay, is there a seconder for the recommendation?
Okay.
Okay, so now you can...
Okay, sorry about that. Got ahead of myself. Yeah, no, I think that the developers have worked hard to try and make this fit into the neighborhood. They've tried to keep the old house. You know, the fact that we don't really have any jurisdiction over the fact that there's going to be 3 buildings there, to my thinking, a rancher would be better than a 2-story. If I was living in that neighborhood, I think I'd prefer that personally. So in seeing all of the information that we were given tonight and knowing that this will go ahead regardless, I would move the recommendation. I think they've done a good job in trying to make this fit in as well as they can.
Okay, and just so everyone knows, the recommendation is that development permit 12-4 and development variance permit 12-8 be issued upon resolution of the outstanding items and subject to the development permit and development variance permit conditions listed in Schedule 1 of the planning report attached to the city. Further discussion, Councilor Price.
Yes. Well, I'd like to, if this is the appropriate time, to refer this to the next council meeting. This
So a motion to
motion
refer.
this recommendation.
Okay, so that would be to the first meeting in November, which is the 6th. Is there a seconder for the deferral motion? Okay, seeing none, then that motion has not been seconded, so the main motion is that the permits be issued. Any further discussion? Councilor Fletcher.
Yeah, again, I think I understand the neighborhood has concerns, but I think that the limitations that are upon us, I don't see that a whole lot can change. I certainly would encourage the neighborhood to have a conversation with the developer. He's here before them and before us tonight. I think what's been done here is a good project considering what could have happened, and as we've heard before, this could be subdivided, the trees could all be gone, so I appreciate that the developer has taken the consideration to retain trees, minimize the impact. Is the neighborhood going to change with 2 more homes? Yeah, there'll be a few more cars going down that road for sure. But overall, I think the community will benefit. We look at infill. We want the downtown to be more vibrant. We know that takes more people. This is close to downtown, so it complements that. And it builds on existing infrastructure, which we know we appreciate, that we're not building more pipes in the ground. We're not putting in more sewers, more roads. So, again, I feel like this is a good step. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councilor McKinnon.
Yes, I do want the neighbors to know I appreciate the concerns about the timeline with the long weekend, and although it does fulfill our guidelines for timeline, I appreciate that, but it seems like the neighborhood was well represented here tonight regardless, and we've heard those concerns. As a follow-up to that, I want to say that your concerns will be passed on to the town appropriate departments, such as upgrading Queen Street and whether there's anything that can be done there for safety and other concerns that have been noted here. So I want to assure you that those concerns have been heard and will be looked at and passed on.
Okay, thank you. Any further speakers? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion's carried. All right, so we'll move on to correspondence. Once we get
Probably frozen.
all that.
Told them that many times.
All right, we're at page 83, which is correspondence. The first item is from Sharon Morgan of Pacific Pro Dive regarding the annual pumpkin party.
I would move receipt, and they're asking us to grant them permission to do something after they lost the letter.
Yes,
So I'm giving them the
28th.
permission they're asking for.
Utilize half the boat ramp on the 28th. I think we've that in the past, so that's been moved. Is there a seconder?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
It is an interesting event.
Are you volunteering?
I thought I've seen it all, and I've been there, and it's unique.
All right. Well, we're already thinking about Christmas. The next letter is from the BIA. After Halloween comes Christmas, and Remembrance Day too. We have a letter from the BIA notifying us of their Rock the Santa event, and that is on the 1st of December, and they're looking for permission and assistance.
And I would move receipt and would grant them the permission and assistance they're looking for.
Thank you. Second for that? Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. And last but not least, the letter from the Legion on the annual Remembrance Day and candlelight ceremonies for the 10th and 11th of November.
I'll move the receipt and that they're looking for permission to block the street to it.
Yes.
And grant them their request.
All right.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Motion is carried. So those will all be dealt with. We'll send money back on those. Reports from members of council. Start with Councillor Swift.
I attended the Courtney Theatre's production of 39 Steps on Friday night. It was an excellent production and well attended. Kudos to the group. I attended the photo walk at Anderton Park where they were had installed the seniors equipment and thought it was fabulous. So I'm hoping that we're going to see lots of use, and probably not till the spring, but I thought it looked great, and I was really pleased to see it occur in such a short timeline. You know, so that was great, and then hospice auction meeting. So that's what I've been doing.
All right. Councillor Price.
Yes, I attended the Comox Archives and Museum Society meeting. Attendance continues to grow with high degree of satisfaction. I attended on behalf of myself, Mayor, the Courtney Council Volunteer Appreciation Dinner, which was very good, and a lot of people, and quite heartwarming. I also made it to 39 steps, and I think it's just finished, so if you haven't seen it, I might be on tomorrow night too.
Yeah, I think there's a
Yeah, well worth going. Very good production. And I also went to the opening of the Anderton Park Senior Equipment. Do concur, it's very impressive.
All right. And then moving on to Councillor McKinney.
Yes, I attended the opening of Anderton Park Fitness Center, and I'd like to make a suggestion to the Recreation Department. I was there the next day, and there were some seniors that didn't know how to use the equipment. And I'm wondering if there might be some workshops on how to use it and perhaps advertise. And I think that would be really most beneficial for any seniors, let alone anybody, any citizen. But great effort, and it was done so quickly. We should be very proud of that. And just forewarning for the CAL meeting next week is that I have a proposal from our committee about youth awards, and it revolves around presenting them twice a year, and I'll have more information next
If
Wednesday.
you could pass that information
I'm going to
to our
talk
clerk,
shortly afterwards.
make sure it gets on the agenda. And on the Anderton Park, I know that our parks superintendent was there. He did hand out an instruction booklet to the students and grades representative, and we'll be doing the same with Berwick. And there are signs, of course, that show people how to use them as well. So it's a matter of
People to do that.
it's supposed to be user-friendly, so we'll take that forward and see where it goes. But I do know that our parks superintendent will work with the neighboring property owners.
That'd be an idea to promote this as well.
Sure. I thought you were actually volunteering to be a guest instructor. Now that you're retired. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you. Since we last met, I attended a special meeting with the as vice chair of the Comox Strathcona Management Committee with the chair. With the Village of Cumberland, we're working on a host beneficial agreement with that community. So we spent a day working on that, discussions with the village. Attended the committee of the whole last week, the opening of Anderton Park, and I do agree, it does seem to need some promotion and structure, because those gauges are kind of hidden away, and I think some people are sure where they are or how to operate them. I'm just perplexed.
Are you volunteering now?
Yeah, good to be seen. And yesterday I attended the Regional District Water Committee meeting and committee report.
Councillor Kengren.
Yeah, I attended the tourism marketing mixer at the Discovery Center, and it was basically about ways to take advantage of the visitor center and the airport. They are now working in conjunction with the marketing. You don't get 2 for 1, but the two are both, there's a synergy there working together with the 2 gateways into our community. So that was pretty interesting. And I also went to 39 Steps. So there you go. Anybody want to go? Well, you need to go. That's it.
And Councillor Tom Grant, who is taking the 39 steps to his hotel room.
No, 92 steps.
It's a 20-step program after his holiday.
As you know, I've been away for 3 weeks, but since I've been back, I chaired the Water Committee meeting yesterday, and just when you thought it was safe to come out of go into the water, you know, this voting issue has come back to haunt us. But I think we've got it worked out. Thank you very much to Councillor Fletcher for her work on that yesterday. And I also attended the committee of the whole meeting at the Regional District.
Great. I'll mention that I also attended 39 Steps in the opening, and I'm still trying to figure out what that 39-step thing is. I think it's British humor. I also had the pleasure of introducing our fire chief as guest speaker at Rotary, Courtney, on the vocational service speakers roster, and our fire chief talked about our fire department, and I thought he was a shining example of a vocational service community member who exemplifies service to the community, of course. Attended the Keisha Cox CD release party at Comox First Nations Hall in the night, a young singer that's making great progress, and the outdoor fitness circuit. And that's my report. No late items, any questions from the media at this moment? Seeing none, and the public have all left, so.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. In favor? Okay.
Well, until you had nice time to see. Oh yeah, we had a great time. So lots of friends. Normandy region, Bordeaux region, Provence, Dijon area, Beaujolais, Bordeaux region.
Is September a good time to go?
Great time. Yeah.
Weather's changed where it's more, I don't know.
The weather's very much like here, to be honest with you. So it's just very much. You know, we had 4 days of rain, I think. And then a lot of days like it was today. Everywhere is on
They are right next to the senior center.
Well, what happened?
So,
They may have city. Yeah, right up there.
now tomorrow night, Trevor Linden's coming to the so I'm going to.
Similar but not the same.
I asked Ron, he said hi.
It looks different, but I'm sure.
I texted him.
He was a defenseman, I told
I
him.
texted him, okay,